Let's get it.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. Everyone hear me? It's 72 the Architect. And
Yo, what's good, ladies and gentlemen? I am your host, Mr. No Show, and we are on blank canvas in the morning. Y'all know what time it is, man. How you feeling this rise this day, Jay?
it's a beautiful day. So for all you listeners and viewers, you can catch us on our pages on YouTube, Twitch. Well, Mr. No Show, you're on Twitch right now, right?
Correct, sir.
All right, all right. So he's on Twitch live. So if you want to check us out, you can also check me out on YouTube or Facebook. Look up 72 the Architect. You'll be able to find us. If you're also catching us live here producing on Wisdom. And what else are you producing from, Mr. No Show?
You can catch me on my own Facebook group, KST Radio. Join the party, get the newest updates, as well as when I will be live. Also, you can catch my post if you're not on my IG as well. So don't be scared to click that follow up and tune in button because I am always around the neighborhood.
All right. And today we're going to talk about headspace, basically. Where's your mind at? Where's your mind at with your headspace? Are you really for sure? Are you down with who, what, and where, and whatever comes into your presence? Are you reviewing it carefully?
It's very powerful talk. So,
All
what are
right.
we reading from today, man?
All right, today we're going to read a dose of the Daily Laws from Robert Greene, which you can purchase anywhere books are sold, whether it be Barnes and Noble, if you want to choose Amazon or any other. The Daily Laws you can see here live on my YouTube. Robert Greene. It's a great purchase. You read one page a day, just like when I read the Daily Stoic. Robert Greene's Daily Laws is a different theoretical approach on daily living, and today and this month happens to be about awareness. So I think it's a perfect addition to add to our blank canvas spectrum. So today is titled "The Mind as a Muscle," and he says, think of the mind as a muscle that naturally tightens up over time unless it's consciously worked upon. What causes this tightening is twofold. First, we generally prefer to entertain the same thoughts and ways of thinking because they provide us with a sense of consistency and familiarity. Sticking with the same methods also saves us a lot of effort. We are creatures of habit. Second, whenever we work hard at a problem or ideas of our minds naturally narrow their focus because of their strain and effort involved. This means that the further we progress our creative task, the fewer alternative possibilities or viewpoints we tend to consider. The tightening process afflicts all of us, and it's best to admit that you share in this flaw. The only antidote is to enact strategies to loosen up your mind and let alternative ways of thinking. This is not only essential for the creative process, but it is also immensely therapeutic for our psyches. Stimulating your brain and senses from all directions will help unlock your natural creativity and help revive your own original mind. Now, the Daily Law says don't get comfortable, take risks, change, try learning about a field you don't know anything about, or stepping into a viewpoint you've never considered. I think that's dope. I think that's perfectly appropriate for today. So, we today we got together talking on on here on producing live from Restream, and we did a blank canvas with cyber shots and Artemis, and we kind of talked about, hey, let's, you asked me like, what's, hey, we're gonna go, what do you want to do a live on? And I really wasn't sure last night, but this came in this morning, and I was like, wait a second, after what we talked, and we talked about some of our friends, headspace is an important thing. A lot of us refer to it. What do you think?
Honestly, the most powerful thing for me to even step foot into is acknowledging focus on our task, right? The biggest thing that I wrote down was the power of thinking. And when we literally go through certain situations, whatever it may be, if you're listening to this on the replay, whatever you're going through in this current moment of your life, whatever it is, it's the power of thinking that really reveals our mindset. So if I'm actually going through some trouble, if I have a lot of stress on my shoulders, if there's a depression that's lurking around the corner and you feel it coming on, it's the power of the thinking that really sets the tone and how you're able to not only defend yourself from that or to just build up your immunity from it. So it's kind of almost how well am I taking care of my mental space? It's where do I stand with all the things that are coming at me, and I don't know which direction they're coming from. It's really important because, like I told you last night on the show, the craziest thing that happened to me was when the cop tried to arrest me for handing out fraudulent money or counterfeit dollar bills when I wasn't even spending with cash. So I didn't know where that was coming from, but yet I was the only one out of everybody at the fair that was picked out. And my headspace was like, this is some bullshit. I'm about to be arrested. I got my kids in front of me. That could be an embarrassment, you know what I'm saying, that I would have to deal with. But the first thing that I really came down to was keep cool, keep calm, understand what you are, because you didn't spend any money. So it's not you. They just have the wrong guy. So
Right.
my mindset was to focus on who I am and what I stood for. And that kind of helped because when that really boiled down to it, the dude that saw everything supported me. And he came out of nowhere as well. He was the last one to show up. So if anything, my headspace could have been messed up and that could have messed my kids' headspace up altogether. So I think that's one of the most important things for me out of this passage.
Well, it's like it's not about what comes to you. You have no control of what events come towards you. And a lot of people talk about this all the time. Major influencers, thought leaders, they talk about it's not about what's in your path. It's what you handle in on your path as it comes, as it unfolds. And you can either choose to be emotionally unhinged or you can choose something else. You can choose a perspective like, let me handle this a little differently. Let me look at what I have on my plate. Do I need to respond? If I get out of hand, what is it going to cost my kids or my wife? These are very important things that people don't think about. It takes training, ladies and gentlemen. It truly does take a lot of training. And if you don't realize that, then you could be missing out on a lot of great things and you could be held against your will for something innocent and not really relative to what their experience is, but to yours, because people respect you after the fact. People will remember good or bad about you. If you have a lot of bad things, building a good reputation is going to be secondary, not even in thoughts, because they're going to remember the most activating experience or thought that you're known for. So if your behavior is like, yo, I stand up to every fool that comes to step into me, guess what? You're not somebody I want to deal with all.
I mean, do you have an angry mind? You know what I'm saying? Are you angry all the time? Are you frustrated with yourself? These are the questions that I ask myself because I find myself angry at a lot of shit. Like I can control it. I know it. If I'm cooking something and it goes sour or goes wrong, like, it kind of upsets me, and that energy is being passed into my cooking, whether I know it or not. So it's really about the energy game for me. And the power of thinking is really strong. And if I don't understand that, then I'm just lost to my own will. So my biggest goal for me as of 2021 was to really focus on how I think about things. Because after 2020 and 2019, leading into it, when I saw Georgia didn't have the peach drop and everything was dispersed outside of the city, I was like, this is odd. I had no control over it. This is what's happening. Somebody had better grasp on the situation and they made sure that the peach drop wasn't going down. So that's one of the things I looked into when I started realizing something was going on. I didn't know what it was, but I had an understanding that this might be a bigger issue. Then the next year we didn't do it. COVID came into perception, and then look, we didn't have one last year. So it's kind of like, or this year, I'm sorry. And it's kind of like, wait a minute, if this is being done behind the scenes and things are being enacted without us even knowing, then that's kind of like a psyop. There's psychological warfare that's being plagued with in and within your area, and you have no control over that. And my second thing that I wrote down was sticking with the same method. Right? We get so comfortable in the things that we do, we forget to pull out of that comfort zone, like I was speaking about yesterday on the show. What do you want? And when you find yourself too damn comfortable, it really just boils down to one thing. Like, are you trying to stay here? Is this what you want? Are you okay with this? And I think after the whole entire situation with COVID, it really told me that I can't just be comfortable with this. Like, we're so used to the mundane. Like, hey, keep on, keep on. We're gonna be okay with going to the New Year's celebration, to New Year's Eve, to New Year's Day. This is what we do. This is kind of a step up. But one of the most important values that I receive from it is there's forces around us that are going to change us without us even knowing it. And I feel that if we are to stick with the same method, we're going to have to figure out how we can live with that. A lot of people are comfortable right now. What was it, the checks that people were getting, the stimuluses, the $1 trillion that received? Like, a lot of people are still losing their homes. A lot of people are still in
Right.
debt.
Where are people any better off from 2 years ago? 2 years
Mm,
ago, right now, think about what was going on. A lot of us had to stay home. We were locked down. Don't leave your house unless you have to go to the grocery store. You can't go to parks. You can't go to movies. You can't do, there's a lot of things we could not do. And the amount of information and fear that was just being poured on, I was like, numbers are up. And a lot of questions were coming at us. Like I remember I was like, so what's the difference between the Rona and being regular sick? And
right.
people were, and they were administering medical treatments that were killing people allegedly. Let me clarify, I am not a doctor. I'm not going to get caught on producing false information, but I will say this. If you're not thinking and observing certain things that they can attest or accord for, there is
Mm,
speculation. So, I encourage you all to do your own creative thinking, and do your own discernment, because that what you allow, like, think about it. The news makes money off attention. If it's not activating your awareness by shock and awe, then what do you got? You got idle attention. If we were to talk about the beautiful dad, the amazing dad playing with his kids in the park, you think you want to view that or read about that? No, more than likely you don't. But if
mm.
you had to hear a story where a dad was playing in the park with his kids having a great time and there was a drive-by shooting and other kids got, one of his kids got killed, yeah, that'd make headline news.
Don't you think people love the negative aspect of life more so than the positive? I mean, when we think about it, some people just wake up, go straight to their social media feeds and search for what's popping today early in the morning. Like, one of the first things they do is wake up and search. Like, for me,
Like,
I
do
wake
you
up.
have your phone next to you when you wake up? Do you
Oh,
click on to Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat? Do you click? I get up at 4 o'clock in the morning. Today I got a little bit late, but one of the things I knew what I was going to do today, so I took my time to get up as I felt I wanted to, not because the
mhm.
alarm went off and said, get the fuck up. Excuse my language, but you know what I mean? But I didn't go immediately to my social medias at all. I got some weird texts from some colleagues and friends that, over the night, and I have my notifications turned on silent. And the only reason why I even clicked into my phone is because I needed to contact Mr. No Show about this morning about doing our show. So, but other than that, I protect my mind space. I don't allow static. I don't let electronics get into my eyesight. I really pay attention to, you can read books like, The Daily Laws, or you can read something, something like even today, As a Man Thinketh. You can read that stuff. You can put something into your mind. You can learn something before the demands of the world come on you when you got to clock in for work. Your kids got to, dad, and mom, I'm hungry. And then like all the ruckus, the chaos starts. But see, I
Mm.
start my morning before everyone else is up because it allows me to choose my thoughts without being polluted with what the outside world wants of me. So it's very important that you know what you're rolling with every day. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
then that's kind of powerful because usually when I wake up, I always burn an incense, right? Just to kind of
Mhm.
bring some extra purity for my mind. And then I'll sit there in silence for like 15 minutes just to get my breathing in. That's one of the most important things for me, because when I do speak, it has to come from the lower chakras and come up to my throat chakra, and that's where the power is, right? And I'm not focusing down on the three levels. I'm focusing on the upper realms is what I'm trying to do. So when I look
Mm-hmm.
into my risings, it's really important what's the key term, because my alarm clock sometimes wakes me up. I got to get my daughter up ready for school. I have to get her ready to go catch the bus. And then my other daughter, she's 2 years old. You can see her dancing behind me if you're on my Twitch. But the thing is, she is always up when I'm up. And that's around 6:45 to 7 o'clock in the morning. So that's a constant routine. Some mornings I just wake up without even issues. Like 5 o'clock in the morning, my body's already up. And that's when I'm knowing that my frequencies are changing, because when I used to smoke heavy weed, I was stuck, man. I would just be so groggy eyed, fog minded. I didn't want to keep my attributes going. I wanted to just slowly progress. And it was getting annoying. I couldn't wake up without having to feeling resentment. And when I knew that weed was overpowering my mental state, I had to change it. So I've cut it off, cut it out. And now everything that I do now is crazy, because my dreams are more snappier, it's more vivid, it's more real, it's more frequent. And when I was smoking weed, it wasn't happening. And I believe Cannabis Conundrum did a show. That's my daughter. Cannabis Conundrum did a show on weed versus sleep. And if we really think about it, one of the things that I like the most is focus on your task. And then other things we're talking about with the headspace game is power of the thinking, sticking with the same method. And then the next one that I was going to talk about here is the progressive habitual thinking, right? That's kind of where I'm at right now. And in order for me to realize the pain that I was causing myself with the grogginess and the foggy minded, it was hindering me. It was me personally. So for somebody out there who likes to smoke weed every day, this is not an attack on you. This is an attack on me becoming aware of my own perceptions. And I love to be able to see the fallacies in my mind and the weaknesses of my mind, so I can actually strengthen those weaknesses and become a better attribute to society. Now, when I look at the progressive habitual thinking, what is my goal, right? What is the overall extension of myself? We all went through something in the last 2 years. The financial situation has changed for a lot of individuals. I've seen a lot of furniture and clothing stuff on the streets, as well as seeing families with more poster signs and cops arresting those kids and parents on the side with the poster signs trying to get some support. And then you just realize, like, when they gave you free fake money, I'm gonna say that free fake money. It just makes you wonder, is like, what were people really doing with it? What were people's mindsets thinking about at that current moment? Are you not willing to take care of your family? Are you not trying to step up the bar? Are you just comfortable receiving this check, knowing that you don't really got to go to work or go for unemployment? Are you okay with that? And myself is like, I couldn't allow myself to do it. That's all that matters. My kids won't see me doing that, so that's all that matters. We actually came up during this situation. That's all that matters. I invested into certain companies during that situation. That's all that matters. So it's all about mindset and how the power of thinking will prevail you.
Well, do you ever think that possibly that a lot of people were distracted, especially with the stimuluses, in thinking about, like, well, you know what? We're going to give you a break while we figure other shit out that's more than what your awareness is available for. Like, a lot of people speak on speculations. They speak on, what they feel, what they think is really happening, the conspiracy. I mean, when George Floyd, the riots broke out for George Floyd in 2020, no one gave a shit about COVID. No one cared. No one appreciated anything that was going on. They weren't worried about their health. They were more worried about, am I being respected as a person, as a culture, as a people? And there were people coming together from all walks of life, all color spectrums, all cultural spectrums, to literally protest that we don't like this. But what was lost, what I noticed, is people lost their damn minds, and I saw the difference between people just trying to be, that are gaslit, or trying to adopt, like they're with the people that are being offended, as opposed to, am I really taking awareness from my health? Is this real illness such a real deal that I need to not go out there and do nothing? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So
Yeah.
that right there, when the stimuluses came in place, I wasn't, I mean, yeah, I would love to march, but my family and their health, if the Rona was as bad as they say it was, and what it could do, I was like, oh hell no, I'm not going out there. No, I'm the breadwinner for my family. I can't do that. Sorry, you
Yo,
know.
I want to share something on my screen um in regards to I'm sorry. It's kind of funny to me, right? Let me pull it up right quick because it goes hand in hand with what we were just talking about. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
All right. So the whole idea is that the Black Lives Matter is imploding in scandals, right? Everybody, like even myself, I was so hip to, because even on another app where I was one of the choice streamers, I was we all sat in a group of choice streamers and we all sat there and discussed what we should do to promote awareness for BLM. Like, all right, cool. I dig it. We're all on the same bandwagon. You got different diversities coming into one circle. And we're going to speak on this subject and we're going to express it and raise some funding. Bro, we raised like over $4,000 as a collective on this app. And that's saying a lot, right? What we did in a small amount of time with a platform such as what we were using.
And
And
a
when we look
focus. That's a focus, man.
at
That's
focus, but we got played. That's the most important thing. We got played. We didn't understand what was really going on at the early stages of the George Floyd situation, right? Because, it really started with George Floyd and then it ended up in COVID, right? Because, once people started rioting, they had to get the permits, right? We got to go to the courthouse, the legislation house, and put these permits in to where we're going to protest. That's the first sign of scandal, to my opinion, right? We have to go get these things and really write about it. And then when we get our permission, we see bricks, pallets of bricks sitting on the side, just waiting to be used. Like, wait a minute, we didn't sign up to use bricks, right? We signed up to support the injustices, the same injustices that Colin Kaepernick was doing, but now he's retracting his statement with what he's doing now. But anyway, the
oh
point is
no,
that
no, wait. He is being a poster child for the NFL right now.
yes, he
He's
is the
not
poster child.
recanting, he's doubling down.
He's
He's
doubling.
doubling down
Anyway,
because he
he's
okay,
making it look
so
bad.
I just read this yesterday. His okay, so he had a field training exercise in front of a couple of scouts in the
Yeah,
last
yeah.
couple days. And I'm like, didn't you do that a year ago and you look like a fool? I'm sorry, Colin, but
Oh
love your
man.
play, but you look like a fool when you change the site for the scouts to see can you still play. But
Mm,
he got a new trainer and it didn't get publicity until after the fact that he did it. But what I found
bruh.
interesting when as I was reading is what was he promoting? If he was still protesting with the kneel down and Black Lives Matter, great. I love you. I support you. Absolutely 100%. But it's like, what did you take in exchange? You got a Nike deal for number one, from one of
Mm,
being the most influential and controversial, you know, players in industry who's not playing right now. That's a fact. It's been what 4 years since he's played. I think it's been 4 years. I could be wrong. So when we look at what comes into our attention, even with the people who are standing up for a cause, history shows tentatively that people backtrack their positions, right? Like if you go back into the 60s, um, for example, I've been reading the Malcolm X story out of personal leisure. And so when Malcolm, what I was learning about him, he didn't walk away from Islam. He walked into Islam like true, like what he really strongly believed. When he went to Mecca, I'm reading the part about his pilgrimage, and that it said him, he's like, yo, he's been a stand-up argumentative guy, and yeah, he stood by his principles. But when he stopped talking for I'm forgetting the name of the group right now, and he protested, um then they they attacked him and they assassinated him later, allegedly. I'm not going to say it's for fact because I'm not an investigator, But if you really think about it, in the long run, in history, we've seen people change their positions according to maybe their belief, maybe their clarity of what they have. I'm not saying I'm adequately articulating his design, but from what I'm reading and what I'm understanding of history, people have changed their position back and forth. They stand up for one thing in one moment, but then once they start coming up, I call them the infiltrators. They start funding your pockets. Are you still saying the same thing when you're promoting and protesting? So
Mm.
yeah, definitely. It's something, you know, what we allow in our headspace, whether it's the news or even your phone. Like we've talked before about how important it is to take our kids out to the park. How important is it to connect with your wife? How important is it to put the devices down and start? You're one big person who promotes your kids. Get into your creative works because this is going to help you be of value in the future. This isn't by accident. You're not training to go get a job and settle down and get married. No, you're like, you need to have a brand new forward thinking perspective.
See, that's kind of where I find myself in a battle of fatherhood. Um,
What's up, little mama? We see you in the background. Or
she
I
just
do.
she just threw a Lego at my TV.
So,
Like, I'm
hey,
not even
that
mad.
could be a sign the little mama's like, can you pay attention to me, daddy?
You know what I'm saying? Like I'm not even mad because I really don't care about the TV. My wife was the other day. She was like, "Babe, there's a TV. There's a 75-inch TV on sale. Do you want it?" I said, "No." It's like, "You don't want a 75-inch TV?" So I said, "No." What the fuck am I going to need a 75-inch TV for? I barely watch the 65 that I have already. So you want to give me a 10-inch bigger? No,
Five
I'm good.
inches more, or
You
no,
know what I'm
10
saying?
inches
Like,
more.
I'm good. I'm good.
Bigger
Like,
is not better.
hold on, shit up, baby. Wait, good. We're good. We're good. But the thing is, like, my focus, every time I get off of here and get done doing my podcast, doing my edits, doing my voiceovers, whatever it may be, I take care of my kids. My focus is on my kids and my business, and that's all it is. Now, when I find the time to sit back and really look at the system that's being portrayed in the media, like my focus is changed differently. So when I was watching I never pronounce her name right. It's the Kajari Brown is her name, right?
Yeah. Oh, I've been watching that
Right.
recorded, and what they did, what they're doing.
What do you
I
mean?
love the way that she's upholding her ground
Okay,
because, like,
no,
they're
she
trying to attack.
bullshit, bullshit. She let a child sex offender go off for 3 months instead of the 125 months that he was originally supposed to have. So the fact that she's just because she's COVID was the situation in the prison systems and she let him out, like that's a bigger issue. You're telling me a 18-year-old kid can sleep and play with an 8-year-old girl or boy and then get the least amount of sentence ever just because the COVID situation in the prisons was astronomically affecting the people and then no, fuck that. Send his ass in
I
there and
mean,
let him get.
I'm gonna disagree with you. I didn't read the merits of that case, and you know what? And that's a gaslit situation because
Oh God,
unless you're
yeah.
reading the findings, I'm sure there's more detail to it than what they told you or how you found out. Because
It's a
when you read
response,
a
bro.
disclosure, huh?
It's a response from the second day hearing. You can see her response and everything she's saying and how she's saying it. Like it doesn't matter how the whole idea behind you forgetting what was in the actual case, right? Forgetting what was in the actual case or the actual words that were being said. No, you remember, Shorty. You remember what you said and how much time you let him off with. So I'm sorry. I understand where you're coming from on one side, but when you start seeing the little bits and pieces that she was saying, it's a whole pie that we ain't eating, bro. Like number one, anybody who's a sex offender should get the maximum sentence regardless, especially if you're a child predator or if you're a child, what I'm saying, trafficker, any of these nasty folk out there that's doing these nasty deeds to these young kids, any one of
Okay,
them,
so
they need to get the
I've
max.
got a couple questions on that then. Okay,
What's
so
up?
upon the release of that individual did he go and molest somebody else? That's what I want to know. First question, because I don't remember seeing that. Maybe
It
it's
doesn't
some
matter if
part
he
of it.
goes out.
No,
It's the
no,
fact that
because
she let
there are
him go
people that are.
off easy.
Hold up.
That's what I'm
There
saying. She
are.
let him off easy.
I get where you're coming from, but I've also seen in the courtrooms that, there are times where people are not necessarily falsely convicted or falsely accused. We have to look at what are the findings of this case. And the other thing is her as a judge, she's an appellate judge. So by the time that she and several other judges have reviewed that case in which she was ruling on, was she an appellate? Was there new findings to release him? So I can tell you as a legal professional, if you're not evaluating, was that finding in an appellate forum or this was a finding in what was actually the criminal trial at hand in the county, in the state? Because there are two different styles. Because when it comes to the appellate, was there a finding that was this person falsely accused, or was the sentencing too harsh? So that's where people are debating at. That's what I see.
I
But
mean, I
you know what?
understand that. I understand
But
that, but the
trying
idea is the headspace, right? The fact that
right,
people are going to be caught up into this realm, like I am. I'm caught up too. Like I'm watching her express herself, and I'm like, wait a minute, I'm jumping into this realm, right? I'm getting sucked into this lifestyle, and I got to come back to my world once I'm done. Now, as a father, I'm looking at it as like, you know what? This is ridiculous. Anybody that does anything about my kids or do anything nasty to my kids, bruh, God can't stop me. You know what I'm
right.
saying? Like it's how I feel. But when I look into the societal aspect of things, is a really big play on how people are getting pushed into these norms. For instance, it says
Granted,
stimulation of the mind, right? That's one of the passages that we read in the book. Stimulation of the mind is the most powerful thing that can get us entwined into to some arguments, get us motivated to do some change, or it could actually lead us like how Black Lives Matter led majority people into a scandal. So it's like we are all being stimulated some way or some fashion, and that headspace is very, very limited on how much attention it can be. It gets pulled from.
I hear what you're saying. Like I said, and I'm going to reiterate what I said before. Those pieces of information were put out into the medias, and why? For the design of like, okay, they don't want this lady confirmed. And also, man, they've tried to attack her like while they're doing this confirmation here. They approached it in a religious view, and she's like, look, I'm not approaching. Like they even asked her, like a Republican senator asked her, so what do you define a woman as? Well, what's the relevance? You're asking me to define what a woman is according to a gender issue that's not before my eyes or to decide. There are not facts enough to adequate for a question like that. That's a loaded question. You're trying, in so many words, and she was trying to say it eloquently. You're trying to trap me. And then also she was approached about, for example, her religious and theological views. That's not her job to really talk about that unless there's facts presented for a legal question or dilemma. So that's what see, this is where the awareness takes place. If you realize what's going on, were the questionings adequate for her style of decision making as an appellate judge or even a judge, period? That's where also it points out your point, where it's like you let a molestator out early. Was it statutory rape? Was it full molestation? I don't know the facts of that case. I can't speak on that. I'm not going to speak on that. But what I can speak on is like how decisions are handled down from judges, and sometimes why. And you find out the holdings. This is the reason why I decided to give a lesser of the sentence, or this is the reason why. See, judges, the state and the federal legislators, they're the ones that determine the sentence values, not the judges. Judges don't make new policies unless you're in the Supreme Court and you have had a holding where it's like, for example, Roe versus Wade, where abortions were allowed, right? They were considered, you're not allowing me to have the liberty of choosing of what goes on with my body. And they've been trying to fight over, well, is the fetus a mind too? Is the fetus a personal experience? And they've been going back for the last almost 50 years, close to 50 years, this debate. And now there are governors who, like the recent one, Idaho governor, who just basically says that he's going to try to ban it in his state. Does he have the capacity as that legislator? No, he doesn't, because the federal holding supersedes the states. The state ruling of Roe versus Wade, they have to allow, it cannot be considered a crime. It can be a style of a holding like where we don't have to give licenses for a business to operate as an abortion clinic. I mean, this is just an example, and I don't want to get into the abortion argument. The point is like how we are gaslit and how we are fed to have controversial information to be put in our presence for us to argue about and do what? Not pay attention to what we do. Are you paying attention? Are you checking in with your wife and your kids? How are they holding up? You know, is there mental health in space? How many people are talking about ADHD, ADD, or depression, anxiety? All these things come up on a frequent basis because why? You are not, you are literally, so many of us are led to be distracted and drift away from what our primary first responsibility is. Be a good person. Take care of your family. In my culture, I'm a Mexican and I'm also an Irishman. You know what? In both sides of my cultures, family comes first, not the news. If I can't go to work, how am I can afford the attention to the news? That'd be my next question. Can you afford people's attention span from things that they don't have a hand in control? Now, we are led to believe that, of course, we have voter rights, right? And we do. You know, people do need to have a voice. But when you really think about it, you know, you think about what is really going to make me a better person. If I have to speak in protest, absolutely. If it's bettering my environment for my community, absolutely. But you also better realize at what cost of your consciousness, what cost will you be willing to give up? You know, it's like people, they called last year in 2021 the Great Resignation. Why was that? The Great Resignation existed because people were tired of having that thought of, let me grind every single day so much to the point of exhaustion. People working 2 and 3 jobs, they can't even see their kids, or they don't even reap the rewards of how they earn their money, how they spend it. But you know what? It's kind of like what Curtis said. His wife proposed, what about a 75-inch big screen TV? And, you know, can you see just fine with what you already have? Are you willing to go into debt or take out of your savings to have those things? Where you drift your attention is where they got you. If I'm getting upset about every piece of news and information that I hear and not adequately evaluating, is this helping me make a decision where I have no decision to make? I'm not on the Senate hearing committee. I'm not in Congress, but I do vote for somebody who is. Do they represent my views? Maybe, maybe not. They're elected by a mass of people. So that's where people get lost in the sauce, as I call it. They pick their party and they think that their party's adequately representing their view. And a lot of times they don't. They don't represent your view. I mean, did anyone, okay, so let's talk about like current events. Ukraine, right? They got like, I think it was like $18.5 billion in aid, right? But was $18.5 billion going to your homeless community in America? Was $18.5 billion going to the mental health crisis in America? No, it's not. They misappropriate funds. They take in money like making a business when the government is not meant for that. The evaluation, the separation of church and state, business entities, and the fundamental liberties of Americans is completely different. But we are constantly drifting and thinking that it's not. We're thinking it's all integrated. Your morals are supposed to be my morals. Well, I'm sorry, but that ain't gonna fly too well. You know what I mean?
Right. That's why I was going along with the lines of how stimulation of the mind is dangerous, man. You know, because when we look into it all, it doesn't matter how we initially approach the situation. It matters what we take from there. You know what I'm saying? So when I look at information like I found about this guy who does the child porn and who was going to molest or going to interact with a 9-year-old girl, it's more or less the fact that there's evidence that holds it against him regardless. And that's his mindset. So when you look into what his mindset already is and established, there's no other way to define that he's thinking in this light regardless. I've never looked at child porn and I never will. There's no
Neither will
reason.
I.
right? So
We're
when
dads of
you,
we have daughters. You have sons. Why
I
would
have
you?
sons and daughters, right? I don't need to, right? I love grown women. That's my thing. I don't care if you're 65 years old, grandma. You know what I'm saying? But
Right?
the point is, it's like our stimulation is key. What stimulates your mind? What grabs your attention? Because if you are having the control of your power of thinking, the attention that grabs you is the main focus, because your headspace is where it's really at. No matter what goes on the TV, no matter what happens at your job, no matter what traffic jam you're stuck in, an idiot cuts you off, your headspace is limited and it could be pulled
Could
out
those
quick.
5 seconds not get you to react to a raged
Exactly.
driver and not get in
Exactly.
a fight or get shot? The point is, number one thing I remember in the military, do your job to get home. That's what we're here for. We're not here to battle our personal principles. We signed a line on the contract. Do your job and get home. And every serviceman, where from a Marine to a sailor to an airman to an infantryman in the Army, even the Coast Guard, these men and women pay a heavy price to get home. And it's not, I'm for America 100%, but I'm not always for how American resources are delegated. I'm not always up for seeing my brothers and sisters going to a far off land and getting blown apart. Unless you've seen that
Definitely.
site, don't be talking about it. You want to do pro Ukraine, but I see a bum, a man who's been beaten down, left and forgotten, pissing and shitting on himself, trying to get a meal, saying, "Hey, can you donate $1?" Asking you for 50 cents on the street. Nah, man, I ain't down with that. I'm more about, you know what? Because if I don't take care of that guy, guess what he does? Him and his friends, they go robbing, they go offending so that they can get taken care of in prison to get health care that everyone has a right to as a human being. But see, we don't think about this too late until people are angry enough. But this is what I tell, like, and this is to kind of talk about certain movements. Like one of my friends, I was talking to Martin about one day, and this is a while back, and he was, like, you white people don't understand us, you don't get us. But I asked him a very important question. Check this. You're pissed off now, but what about in 4 months when the movement calms down? Are you still going to be saying and promoting the same damn thing? Are you still going to be as angry, or are you going to use your diligence of words to encourage people to be better? Hasn't done such. But every time, something happens and BLM comes up, and I'm not trying to harp on Martin, but he's a good friend of mine. But it's like, you can't be a sideline protester and then expect to be in the street fighting. And then when things calm down, when the problem still exists, to change.
Right.
No, change comes consistently over time because people care enough. And so for me to support the resource delegation to overseas to Ukraine, I mean, look at every social media. It's like, support Ukraine, support Ukraine. Ask yourself a real question. Did
Hey.
anyone possibly say support the people of America to be able to take better care of us? We do not have the employment opportunities that are equal and fair to all. We do not have a fiscal fairness in our country. The buying
Right.
power of the dollar has been diminished. Why? Because of global economics, because you have outsourcing, and if you don't realize how powerful it is, guess what? There are more corporations that own farms and own interest in farms of where your food goes somewhere else and not to your table. This is a
Yo, you know
reality.
what? It's interesting because as you said that, only thing that came to my mind was America's mentally broke, right? They can hit us with anything, and the media, and we'll all jump onto it. You'll see it on Instagram, you'll see it on Facebook, Snapchat, you'll see it everywhere. And when I started seeing a lot of people on Facebook just constantly go out there and say support Ukraine, yo, what about, did y'all even think about what went on with, the weapons of mass destruction back when the towers fell? And then we found out that wasn't true. And now we're looking
Allegedly, supposedly, right?
allegedly.
Allegedly.
No, but it's crazy because now we're looking at the biolabs, right? In quotes, biolabs that are in Ukraine supposedly. So it's like we're getting all this fed information, and it's constantly being regurgitated from those who like to copy and paste, not necessarily do their due diligence and look into it themselves and really try to figure out what biolabs that they're talking about. You know, and then also you hear about the Nazi regime, the Azov. I forgot the rest of the name, but the Azov crew, whatever. They're supposed to be like Hitler's Nazi regime in Ukraine. You hear about this, it's like, wait a minute, why does this even matter? So when we associate our mindset, our headspace, when we look into that and we just see it pop up into our feeds, we're automatically associating these things into our headspace. It's not that we're choosing to, it's just that it automatically pops up in our feed, knowing the algorithms these certain apps use are demeaning to what we are trying to be. So there's no reasons why that we should just jump onto it, but we do. There's no reason when we walk in the store and we're with our spouse and we see that fine piece of thing that walks over there for the ladies, whatever, for the men, for, you know what I'm saying? It's like, oh shit, look at that ass. And you know, your girl catches you looking, you're like, you're fucked. So it's automatically like, like
she
my
slap
head.
you upside your head, like, whoops, you were looking at her, huh?
I mean, you know, there was a fly. I had to, you know, and it just happened to land on her and shit, you know.
and then they're gonna say like, "What I'm not pretty enough? You don't pay attention enough to me?" You know. Shout out to Giovanni, crazy, but Tupac
Yeah.
said that they have money for war but can't feed the poor. That's an important fact.
Facts. Hell yeah.
You know, you want to talk America first. Guess what? When America can't be fed and can't even afford what the debate of living wage versus, you know, people's sanity, the best way to help your community, your country, is one, take a look at your people, where their needs are. If I were to have if I were president of the United States, this is what I would do: $18.5 billion. You know what I would do? I'd wipe out all student loan debt with all of that, because guess what? If you looked at the national numbers of the student loan debt in default, it's at a 70% threshold. They just did a talk about this. Where was it? I think it was on a TED Talk. I'm trying to remember real quickly, but I'll find the facts on that. But they said that 70% of all default student loans in the last 3 years alone is less than, I think it's like less than $4 billion. So 18.5, you bring all those people and their student loan debts, because it's an indentured servitude loan. You can't get out of it unless you're dead, but your family might have to pay for it. So this is the critical thing. Why wouldn't you want to invest in your people? Mental health, take that debt away, teach them about finance and resourcefulness, how to invest in themselves, and instead of just like, global economics.
I'm gonna share my screen real quick. I think I found it. This should be it if I'm correct. Let me know. As of December 3rd, 2021, an article by Kat Tritina states that if you have a high student loan balance, you're not alone. The Federal Reserve reported that Americans currently owe 1.7 trillion in student loans, an increase of nearly 102% over the past 10 years.
I think it's less than that. I think it's less than that, honestly.
Less than 1.7?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
well, I'm talking about default loans. These are loans where people don't pay. I'm not talking the total loan of the whole country, but the default loan.
In a sense, if the whole country's, if that number is actual, right? 1.7 trillion, like people got more than that in the stimulus. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Then his Build Back Better plan includes things outside of that. So like, if they were to just to wipe everyone's slate clean, like you said, like you would do, yo, I don't understand why it's like that. It's the mindset is real. Our headspace is real, and we can't figure this out as Americans, but yet are spending. What did he say? He spent over $800 million or $200 million, maybe $1 billion to fund war in Ukraine, right? They gave them ammunition and supplies for Ukraine. So it's like, bruh.
But yet, what they fight with? Russian technology. There's no there's no U.S. planes leased to the Ukraine. And here's also a fun fact. Not that Ukraine's going to be our focus, but this is about mind space. Not even a year ago, Ukraine took its jets and bombed Syria. Remember that?
Mm.
Y'all didn't? Did you all forget about
People
that?
don't
And
people ain't looking
they
at
bomb Muslims and Christians all the same neighborhoods. We saw it on CNN Live, seeing a man carry his children, his dead daughter down the street. You know, we've seen those views, and if people forgot about all that, guess where those planes came from? And now their argument is that Russia doesn't want Ukraine to be a NATO member. Really, NATO is not a defensive tactic; it's a business entity. It's a
it's a
business
bit.
exchange, in my opinion.
We don't even need Ukraine to join NATO. That's the craziest thing about it. But it influences more power for the whole ideology of NATO, which
Right.
push. If you think about it, like Battleship, you know what I'm saying, like, or just like how they have all their pieces
B6.
around. All these pieces are
Miss.
literally hubbed around. So when you think about it, China and Russia working together have more of a power unity than any other major country in that region. So if you think about all those that are U.S. territories surrounding Russia and China, it's like we're closing the vice grip on them. We're just squeezing them. And what do people do when they're in that situation? Either they're going to fight back, or you know what I'm saying, or they're just going to let it be what it is. And I don't think everyone's
What's
trying to.
more interesting is like, okay, so for example, you know, the gaslighting of where how much our resource, according to the Department of Energy and Resources as well as Agriculture, they're trying to say that how much grain comes from Russia to the U.S. Well, have you been to the Heartland before? Because there's a shit ton of grain coming from there. And guess what? Should we really be concerned about grain when the high fructose corn syrup, which also comes from corn and comes from wheat and barley and all that stuff, that false sugar actually poisons our system? You know, it causes inflammation, your gut inflammation, your gut bio. Should you really be concerned about grain? I don't think so. I don't really think so. I'm sorry. And then they talk about the oil resources coming from Russia, and the oil resources going from Ukraine. Usually it gets distributed throughout the Middle East or certain countries of the Middle East as well as Africa. So, and in even Italy. But our oil resources are being reported, well, we don't have enough oil. Well, really? Do you want to go to the Department of Energy and check and see what that they manage how much oil can be drilled or withdrawn from our native country, even though it's companies like Shell, you know, OPEC, um, what is it, Chevron, all these oil
BP.
companies that are foreignly owned, conglomerates that are not U.S. owned. Guess what? They're saying we'd rather sell it to you more expensive. Now, for some of us in California, current gas rates right now are above 5.50 a gallon on average. Do you think it's going to drop below five? Nope, I don't think so. Because once they got, hey, we grabbed a hold of that tit of oil, and we're going to keep squeezing at that rate. We're not going to charge you less
Mhm.
unless there was like a 50% reduction of gas needs on the freeways. That would only be reason why the gas would go down. It's
So if
not going to
people
go
started
down.
working from home, like that's funny because as soon as the gas prices started raising, people were going back to work. So the commutes are back on in session. The remote work is about to be depleted. No one's about to do that as much anymore. The most interesting thing that you said was that let's say our headspace gets focused into the market, right? If $5
Mhm.
is what you think it's going to be in the next year and a half, nah, it might be six. It might be 750. It might be $9. Who knows, right? It could be $9, $10 in 6 years from now. But the most exactly what Giovanni just said. So what the push is, Giovanni, though, check this out. It couldn't necessarily be that gas is gonna just keep on staying the same how it's been. Trump was like, yo, it's $2. You like $2, right? $2 is good. So when you look at how it was, think about what the market is trying to lead into, right? I've started seeing more electric housing units at more gas stations and grocery stores as of late. Now,
Well,
when you
you're going to
think
see
about
in the next 10 years the disappearance of a lot of gas stations.
exactly,
And mall spaces are going to be, and this is not talked about a lot, but I've seen it in developers. They have literally said we have plans to demolish old malls and turn them into multi-living complexes. They in investor in the real estate world, they talk about invest in multi-living spaces because they make you more money on the average. There, it's a residual income that you can't argue against, and your property value goes up and up because it has multiple spaces in a smaller area than what a home would take up. So if we're not realizing what's taking place, it's a style of monopoly. Now, people say go electric, right? Okay, I've got a couple of questions for you. If you look at the way Tesla vehicles are designed, right, the batteries, that where they get them from is Tesla doesn't make these batteries. Key, they are bought from other companies. However, these other companies sell to like Rivian, who just bought out Nissan. Rivian, it happens to be a company that's owned by India. It's an Indian investment corporation that now owns a Japanese auto producer that has always produced many great cars, the most fuel efficient car, gas powered cars on the market today. But here's one big problem with Nissan. They have what I had to face. I had to pay something like $5,700 to replace what's called a CVT transmission. This thing goes out. And here's a fact. If you don't replace replace your transmission fluid every 12 to 14,000 miles, your transmission is more likely to go out before you reach 100,000 miles. That is crazy because and what they do is they take the transmission, they make it in China, Vietnam, and several other countries. They ship it here as a whole, and they sell it to us. The transmission place that fixed mine, the guy was telling me, he's like, I have the tools to rebuild one, but no one has the money to pay me to rebuild a transmission. It's easier for me to buy one from a warehouse, throw it in, takes less time, and I'll give you 100,000-mile warranty to swap in and out. Now, I had to take my car 3 times. They replaced the transmission twice within the last 2 months. I went without a car, a work car, which I depend on my work car because I drive out in the middle of farmland here in California. Mm-hmm. That's a reality. I do a lot of consulting. I do a lot of work. And so, what I will tell people is like electric seems to be pushed for the next outlet, but do we have the infrastructure to really invest, and who's the benefactor? Because electricity is monopolized. Like out here in California, you got Pacific Gas and Electric. Who is responsible for most of the Northern California wildfires? PG&E. And guess and here's a fun fact. They literally got a pass from the state of California with the governor and its own legislation to say that you don't have to pay the lawsuits in the billions of dollars and losses. And we're talking billions of dollars. In the last 4 years, they don't have to pay what normally you would have to pay in a lawsuit. These people are not getting their homes back. They're not getting their resources back. They counted on them moving on. So now they've created regulations of when they call them rolling blackouts. So when energy is at its peak or temperature is at its height, they will institute blackouts in certain areas so that they won't have forest fires. But I have a question for PG&E. Did you ever think about investing into replanting for forestation, which determines your energy value? Because if you're in a drought and it's not raining enough, guess what propels your power plants? That water energy. And we've been trying to get away from coal. There's other alternative fuel sources that literally are making our grid work. Texas tried to do, and guess what Texas went through last year? They went through a freeze out. Their whole grid failed. They were off the main grid. Texas was trying to set themselves up to be their own country. They're like, nah, hell no. We're gonna be us. No one's like Texas. You go to Texas, it's like, hey, Texas is Texas.
In your own world.
America,
in your own world.
You know what I mean?
Different world, yeah.
Yo, Gio's got a few things to say. Let me post up. Let me see what he's got to say. Okay. Gio says, I drive a Prius to work and on waiting list for a Tesla truck, right? Oh, he also says, the Escalade I only drive on weekends or if I'm going out and the thing gets 16 miles per gallon. Interesting fact about this. You know who announced not to make certain cars? Dodge announced that they are not going to make the Challenger or the Charger any longer. They're discontinuing it. As same goes for
Shit.
Chevy discontinuing their Camaro. They've announced this. They've said we're not going to make muscle cars. But here's the funny thing about electric energy. People are taking their motors out. They're manually making these muscle cars into electric cars. And guess what? These electric cars, the Tesla S, goes faster than most muscle cars. I've seen street races on YouTube. It's no joke. So the question is, and here's what people don't realize about the
Mm.
Tesla battery or the electric battery, the lifespan. So on average, if you had to replace your battery in your Teslas, your batteries that goes underneath the bottom of your car, it's not in your trunk, it's in the bottom of your car, the new models.
Under your
It'll
butt.
cost you $10,000 per battery element, $30,000 for a replacement. So your battery life, I would be curious to ask, how long is that battery? So it's like asking how often your cell phone runs out. We are supposed the system literally propels that your cell phone to be replaced every 2 years. The
Wait a
battery.
minute. Wait a minute. So you mean this is beyond me, right? But it's most interesting to even think about the capabilities, how often people will charge their phones versus how much they'll charge their cars. Uh, like if you have to charge your cars up more frequently, wouldn't that mean you're paying more?
Eventually you are. So Gavin Newsom announced in his
Oh
legislative
shit!
action by 2035 there will no longer be any gas vehicles sold in California.
Wait, what
You,
date? Did Newsom say this?
Newsom said by 2035 there will no longer be gas. By that year, there will not be gas-powered vehicles sold in California.
13 years from now. 13 years.
So put this
13
in
years.
perspective of all the things that are going up with gas. These energy companies are fighting to create energy. So if they can't produce crude oil and gas, what do you think they're investing into? Where's it coming from?
Oh god, that's why I put my money
New
into
tit to
electric.
feed off of.
Yeah.
Geo says, I use a CNG fuel for my big rig at the yard, and we have pumps from PG&E. LOL. Interesting. Artemis goes to say, she says they had a line at the mall to charge Teslas, and me and my dad were in shock. That's a big thing. No one talks about this in the LA basin. That happens a lot. And guess what? So we got solar in the last couple of years. We're getting batteries for our solar powered system, right? But guess what? To have electrical vehicle, you have to have the outlets that are properly gauged to charge your vehicle. So you have to pay an electrician to go install a charging cell to power up your car appropriately because they have different fitting outlets to attach to your car. So you can't just plug it in like you think, and how much is it going to deplete? So big questions, not enough answers, in my opinion.
It's a headache. I just feel like this is a whole gamble. No matter what people choose, they're going to be forced to make a decision. Either they're going to be stuck with the gas and then pay outlandish prices, or they're going to be stuck with the charging stations where, in my opinion, I do think it's like each parking spot will inevitably become a charging spot. So when you go grocery shopping, you can literally park, or we go to a mall, you can park and charge it. But then we have to ask ourselves, most countries that are so hot, have you ever seen a battery sit in the sun for too long? What is what is the outcome for that? So there's a lot of things that people have to ask themselves in this mindset of the headspace, because it's a changing world. The stimulation is real. The power of your thinking is real. The progressive habitual thinking is an assignment that you should be doing all the time, as well as loosen up the mind. Relax yourself, ease it. Our homegirl Artie, we hope that she has some more relaxation going on today than she did yesterday. Hopefully she won't need no Bacardi bottles. But long story short,
You like that?
I
Hey,
just
remember
need
yesterday? Hey, is that a baby bottle?
it's a baby bottle. It's a teeny weeny, itsy bitsy tiny bottle.
Let
But
me just give it a little
gotta
bit of a
control
break.
that
Ladies
headspace.
and gentlemen, if you want to see us live view a blank canvas during the week when we come on, and I'm going to also be doing this with Rise and Grind, you can check me out on YouTube and Twitch. If you're not following me already, or No Show, you can see our social medias linked to our Linktree accounts that show everything that make it readily, easily for you to follow and be a part of the show. If you don't want to call in, I am producing also live on Wisdom, so I am taking calls. And I've got to wrap this up in a couple minutes. So if someone wants to come up and leave a thought process or share it, feel free. If you just want to type it out and you go onto my YouTube, 72 the Architect, or Mr. No Show on Twitch, you can type in your comment and we'll see it. We'll read it if you want, or share it. Your value is important to all of us, and these messages and these talks are to expand your horizons, but not to tell you what to think. Let me focus on that. We are here to influence you to think for yourself and have your own creative process so that you can discern the best decide for you. And that's what the beautiful thing about Blank Canvas is. What we do, we want to inspire minds to use its creative processes again and again and again, because our humanity depends on it. If we are not doing this appropriately and attentively, we got issues. So I know you're laughing because little mama's in the background.
Yeah, she going in.
Yeah.
She's just playing around. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, y'all can check us out on Twitch, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all the normal socials that are out here except for TikTok, because I don't fuck with it. Yo, just saying.
Yeah.
But also you can come to my website, kstradio.com, check out the new merch. This shit is live. You know what I'm saying? We out here getting things done, help produce great shows for each and every one of y'all to paint your minds, to elevate your spirits, and then get yourself on the bandwagon for the next futuristic idea. So, ladies and gentlemen, please understand this is not us just trying to defraud people. It's not us trying to make fun of people or anything of that nature. It's just for us to
We do make fun of
kind
people
of
though.
elevate you. Yeah, just kind of elevate you guys. So let's keep the rising risen. You feel me?
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, there is going to be options. No Show has a website. I am finishing up my website, so we will have bonus content for subscription value. So if you want to be subscribers to either one of our websites or both, help support the platform, as well as not just being podcasters, vloggers, or social influencers, but you know what? This money helps pay for platforms so that we can distribute as we are. Like right now, I'm producing live from Restream Studio, using the Studio Pro form, and it makes it great because you know what? We were on Haps, but the platform changed, the app changed, and we were out. You know, but this is where you get to own your creative experience and maybe do your own experience for yourselves, for your own products. We do share gems at times, but for subscription based, which is coming up, the subscribe to 72 the Architect on YouTube and KST Radio, his website, and what he does on Twitch and everywhere we produce. The subscriptions pay off because you will get access to exclusive subscription materials in the near future. And that's the thing, is a beautiful thing. We all can have a great time, make some resources and get to reach out to more people. So without your support, we won't be able to go forward, but we definitely appreciate your experience. And some shout outs on the Wisdom platform. Thank you so much for Joel. Hey, good to see you. Julie, Marcus, good to see you. Empress Q, what's going on? Bella AQ. I've had Daryl, Kristen Brown, Lionel Bailey. Thank you all so much. Annabelle Hartley, hey, thank you for coming. Dr. Rao, these are wonderful personalities on the Wisdom app. So if you want to follow me on Wisdom, and even No Shows on Wisdom too, find up 72 the Architect. You'll be able to hear, if you just want to listen audio and you don't want to see the video, whatever you're, consuming this content, let it be, man. Let it grow. We definitely need your help.
Facts. So for the final thought, I want everybody to really remember that in your headspace is very, very limited. People will try to persuade you, people will try to alter you, but understand the power of your thinking, understanding progressive habitual thinking, as well as loosen up the mind, because stimulation of the mind is key. And also, when you get ready to do things, focus on your task, enact strategies to loosen up your mind to get those tasks resolved. And that is it for me today, ladies and gentlemen. Artie, Giovanni,
Gio, yeah. We
appreciate you,
appreciate you.
as well as
Yeah.
Claudia. Appreciate you. Yeah. And as well as up here on stereo, we got Shonda. Mad love to you, G-Ball. Appreciate you spending time with me and my co-host here, host 72 the Architect, as well as Edward. I appreciate y'all. Thank you all for joining us on this
Absolutely.
blank canvas episode, Headspace.
All right. Well, I'm 72 the Architect.
And I am No Show.
All right, and we're out.